quite an echo.
Welcome, everyone. We are in a special episode of the Built on Air podcast. Preparation for an upcoming community hackathon that is underway. It's going now till next
We're about
week.
halfway through.
Yeah. So I know Camille and Ali are judges for that. And in addition to Airtable is judging again as well. Is that correct?
Yes.
They have their own category.
Yeah.
Right.
Gotcha.
Yeah. There's 3 different categories. Camille and I, along with Erica Pasquale, are the jurors for one of the categories. And then there's 2 others. One is the most liked just by the community in general. And that's last year we did it driven by YouTube likes. And then the third is a AI specific prize awarded by Airtable.
Yeah. I'm going to message everyone.
Awesome. Yeah, so we're super, super excited. The window to submit is open until March 17th, so that's a week from today. And we are really excited. Last year we got a ton of games submitted, so that was kind of the inspiration behind the theme this year. And we've seen over the years quite a few people on our show as well, on Built on Air, demoing lots of different games that they've built. So I've seen a wide breadth of creativity, and I'm super excited to see what everybody's building.
Yeah. So we thought we'd open it up if anybody had any things that they're working on. The theme is games, playing games, anything fun like that. Airtable can be used for all sorts of things. And so excited to see what people are building. So we thought we'd open it up if anybody wanted help or input or questions or feedback. We're available, and we do have Lisa with us. So we're going to bring Lisa on, see what she's up to. Lisa, welcome.
Hi.
Hi, Lisa.
Sorry in advance if my 1-month-old cries. I'll try to quiet him down.
That's good. No worries. Cool. Well, nice to meet you. I don't think we've met before, so good to have you on.
Yeah, actually, Ali, I don't know if you remember, we met at the Boston Airtable event, and then Camille, you had actually helped answer a question that I had like 3 years ago on this show. So appreciate.
That's how I got hired at my current job, answering random questions on the forums.
So thank you for that support. But Dan, it's very nice to meet you in person.
Yeah, likewise. Cool. So what do you have going on?
Yeah, actually, I don't know if I can share my screen. Share screen. There it is. So my thought for this game was, I'm personally, as we all are, a big Airtable fan, and my goal is like wherever I end up working, I want to try to implement Airtable. And for some reason, every place that I've worked at, I've been the only person who knows what Airtable is. And so I'm in this mindset of I'm really interested in like enablement and change management, and trying to think about like how can I make an introduction to Airtable more fun is kind of where my mind was going. And with this hackathon, it's like maybe I could try to introduce it in a gamified way. And so that's what my North Star was, like, how can I help teach new users, specifically the audience being new users, like the key features and the key navigations of Airtable, a fun introduction. And so I'm also a, sharing my screen here, a Friends fan, the TV show. So I don't know can you guys see my screen yet?
Yeah.
So I try to make this like an RPG Friends Airtable game. But I am hitting a lot of snag on it. So that's where I'm hoping I could get some feedback and support from this group. But essentially, like, someone would go in, they would choose like a character. And as if you know Friends, these are kind of like the careers of each of the characters of Friends. And then you would start the game. It's very basic, right? But there are 3 locations. There's Monica's apartment, Joey's apartment, and Central Perk, which is the cafe. They would use their keyboard to kind of move the characters around and enter into an apartment and click into it. Again, this is still very much a work in progress. I'm hoping to make this more like Monica's apartment, but they'll start a conversation with Monica. She's hosting Thanksgiving. She's freaking out. She doesn't have everything organized. So she's kind of bringing the player to help her get things organized using Airtable. And so I have right now, I was able to kind of build Monica's mission. And so they'll click, I'll help. And every location has 1 mission with 3 challenges is how I'm hoping to set it up. And so with this one particularly, the first one is like, okay, help me make sure that I know what the dietary preferences are for folks. So like, this is where they can see like, okay, I can do a single drop down and choose options. I'm just gonna quickly pick one so we can keep moving forward. And there's also an Airtable tip that kind of like shows a little bit about Airtable. I'm hoping that I'll turn that into like a more gamified thing too. But essentially they'll go through these different challenges. The second one is kind of like showing them you can group these to see like how many people are vegetarians versus how many can eat anything, to kind of show them that you can organize in a different way. And then the last one being like the linked records, like you can link it to another table and organize. That's kind of like the power of Airtable, is the relational database, kind of showing them that and have a little blurb on that as well. And then they complete a mission. So that's like my goal, trying to recreate that with every location. And I have one for Joey's apartment, and where Joey is getting all these auditions that needs to be organized. And then Central Perk, Ross is hosting a trivia night that he also needs to organize. The snag that I'm facing is that I'm using Omni, obviously, to create all of this, but I'm having trouble understanding like what's the best, finding the right prompt to help build it out. Like I was able to build it in Monica, but I'm having a hard time recreating that in Joey's. And I'm kind of trying to do it bite size at a time, but now like you can see here, it's kind of cut off. I was able to create the first one where it's like help reschedule the conflicts, but I'm having issues fixing this problem, and I'm like rewarding the solution multiple times to get it fixed, but it's still not working. Sometimes it'll first start by creating a whole new interface page, and then I have to say like, no, bring this over to this work like flow here. And so I think my biggest challenge here is understanding like the best way to structure my prompt in Omni so that I'm getting the right solutions in my build. So I'll stop there.
I am so curious what the original prompt was.
It was really basic. I think I was like, help me create an RPG game, introducing Airtable. Here are the missions, friends, theme, go. But I can go back in my history if you're actually curious.
It's so cool.
My guess might be it might have, because you started with Monica, right? Omni might not have anticipated that there would be additional missions. And so I don't know how it's structured under the hood. Is missions a table, or the fact that it kept creating a whole new interface page? I wonder what the table structure to support all this is. Was it creating a table for Monica and a table for Joey and so on and so forth to like store all the information about these challenges? No, it looks pretty clean.
Yeah. That's another thing, right? Like I've made so many new bases for this hackathon because I was trying to figure out like, do I start by creating my own database first and then use Omni to create a game? This last one, I'm just purely using Omni and letting them handle. So appreciate feedback there. Like, do you typically start by building out your database if you know and familiar with that, versus just kind of using Omni full on, just Omni, letting them kind of build it out on their own too?
It's a really great question. I think that varies depending on the user and how comfortable you are with Airtable. Like, I think you absolutely can use Omni from the beginning, but it requires you to be able to look at what it did and be like, okay, I A, understand it, and B, agree that it's good structure. like I often find that I disagree with the choices it makes. So I like to, when I'm having trouble with it, I often kind of, usually I'm doing it off of something that I built and I'm very familiar with. So I like to include in my prompt, I guide it and say, your code should be structured like this. If that makes sense. But I still, even then, it still just does some crazy stuff sometimes.
Yeah.
I personally, I would create my own, at least table structure and core fields. You know, once you get to the additional fields, I'd probably be okay with Omni adding those, but the core, I would probably dictate the structure that I would want.
I would say the same, but I am very impressed with what I see from the schema so far. Like, that's what I would have done. Can't speak for the fields for every table, but that's pretty close. So going back to what your first question was, Monica's mission came in more or less fine, and then it's adding new missions to it. What is wrong with Joey's mission?
Initially, it was when I prompted in Omni saying, okay, now recreate Monica's mission, but in Joey's apartment. And here are the missions and the different challenges. I started to build out an interface first built out a whole new interface for Joey's apartment. And then it started to build out, and I kind of reprompted again, then built out like the actual challenges separately as an interface page. And so I was like, great, now can you embed, and I had that same issue, I think, with Monica too initially, but can you embed this back into this workflow here so that it's all in one place? And it's starting to do that. But then there are some glitches, as you saw, like with the calendar, I'm not able to edit in the way I wanted to move to the next challenge. And so it's really like, I'll eventually get there, I think, but there's just a lot of workaround ways that I'm having to navigate. So was just curious if there was a more straight shot way that I'm missing.
I think
your idea is so ambitious.
Quite
Go
is,
ahead, Allie.
Absolutely. It's really impressive. It is a very ambitious idea. I mean, all I was going to speak to is just one of the like UX like pieces of using Omni that is not so clear, that I often trip up on and see it create these additional pages instead of editing the actual element that I want it to edit, is when you prompt it, you want to make sure that you've clicked on the element first. Like if you click on friends in the center of the screen there, and see how you can barely see it with the black, but there's a blue outline around that, and it says custom over the Omni prompt box, says the word custom. So it knows we're asking it to make changes about that element. And if we forgot to do that before we send the prompt, before we hit enter on our prompt, it would create a brand new page. Like that's when it creates a brand new page.
Okay.
However, that being said, your language you use in your prompt, even when you have the element selected, if you say something, and I haven't quite hit on exactly what it is yet, but I have experienced even when I've clicked on it, it says custom right there in that prompt box. It still does something weird or like wants to create something new. And it's just because I used the word like new instead of update. Like I need to just edit the language I'm using a little bit.
Yeah.
But I digress.
That's helpful.
One thing that I think is interesting is conceptualizing, because you've got multiple pages going on. Each page has a custom component that Omni is building, but you're integrating it with standard components, right? Like the table listing or the grid. And that has the benefit of being able to use kind of the standard Airtable approach, especially for what you're trying to do. Because one thought I had was, in theory, you could put everything into one component and have your menu system inside of there. So it's just like one component that you're building that has everything. but then you aren't able to like mix and match the native components with your custom component.
Mm-hmm.
Because like, you know, either doing it through that custom approach, or if you built a completely custom extension that had its own menu system with multiple pages all within a custom extension. So there's the trade-off there of like losing the ability to mix and match native with custom. It's interesting.
Yeah, I think some part of your approach, which again, very impressive, that might end up frustrating you is because they didn't supply Airtable's grid element as a thing you can use in your own custom extension. So that table that you had where they were selecting their dietary preferences, that's another like just available component that you could put in any React app. And part of you is going to be fighting against, well, that's not what Airtable looks like. That's just a table. And same thing with your calendar. But you could still teach the core principles that I think you're trying to teach. So that shouldn't necessarily be a hindrance, but it might be, you might run into something very specific with that calendar component of that component wants you to write your code in a certain way and Omni isn't realizing it for whatever reason. So there's just a little bit of a barrier on that front of Omni not necessarily knowing how to handle that particular type of extra component that it's bringing in.
Yeah, that's helpful. I mean, it was for me like a value of the design principle of like, I do want the interactive part to be as close to the actual Airtable as possible, because I want the users to become familiar with Airtable looks like. But that's a good point of setting that expectation of it's not going to be 100% one-to-one.
Right.
And, realizing where the limits are and changing my language there. And maybe I'll try, based on what I'm hearing, rebuilding, starting from the database side again and kind of building that out first completely, now that I have that more built out now and mentally, and then using Omni to help build rather than, I don't know if you saw, it wasn't loading, it was loading slowly, but like while they have the different schemas, the actual the content itself is missing. Like if I go to the mission table, there's nothing there.
It's not saving.
Yeah, none of it. It's just all living in code, I think. So it's kind of interesting of how that's also working with just using Omni to build it out. Like it's building out the tables, but the actual data is not living there. So I'll see.
so
Interesting. Yeah,
like
because the schema looked pretty close to, again, how I might try to design it if I were trying to design it myself from scratch. So if you did a fresh base with a similar looking schema, and as part of your original prompt, you say, one of the key pieces of this custom component is that it should be saving data back to these tables with this structure, that might resolve that issue up front, because your mission progress is probably being stored in like a cookie or your like cache history.
Yeah. Okay. Great. And then one last question in terms of the actual submission for the hackathon. Is it just, and sorry if this is not the right place to be asking this, but do we need to be able to share the actual interface for the judges to be able to interact with, or is it just purely the YouTube walkthrough is enough?
Just purely the YouTube walkthrough is enough. Absolutely.
So I won't worry about it,
but you don't have to.
Got it. I feel like that's a whole layer of building that I'm a little afraid to wrap my head around.
Yeah.
Okay.
Agreed.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Any feedback you have on the game or the concept of it?
It's so cool.
Yeah. When you were describing, and then as you first were going over Monica's mission, I was like, I'm dying to hear what part stumped her, because she's pretty far along.
It's really, really cool. I really love the idea of building the game with a purpose of like being useful, like something that you can actually employ and help people learn Airtable with. So I really like bravo on that idea. I love that.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, well, we'll see. We'll see if it's actually useful. But thank you for your time and feedback. This is really helpful.
Yeah, thank you for coming on and showing that, and good luck. And yeah, that's really awesome what you're working on. Very cool use case.
Great.
Thank you, Lisa.
Awesome. Thanks, Lisa.
So cool. There really is like this whole other layer of abstraction now. I feel like I was speaking with Mike Simmons, who's really putting on the hackathon recently about this, where it's like you kind of could theoretically do this whole game without ever having any data hit the database. And that just kind of takes the Airtable-ness completely out of it, which is weird.
Yeah, in theory you could. Yeah, that's interesting. The Omni, I wonder if it was like storing like a JSON file or something, saving the data.
It's got to be somewhere. Otherwise, it's in a cookie. It's in your session storage somewhere. But yeah, very impressive. And one of the reasons why I like this hackathon is we just said build a game, and the variety that you'll see out of what was built is staggering.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Cool. Well, anybody else watching, come join us if you've got something else worth sharing. Otherwise, in the meantime, we've got a couple things that we're going to share. Camille, is yours up and running?
It sure is.
Okay, why don't I'll put yours on. Yeah.
And I'm realizing I wish I went and grabbed the box for this. My sort of example project was rebuilding a real card game called Flip 7, which is basically blackjack. So your objective is to draw cards until you hit a specific goal. And when you hit that goal, cool, you win. If you don't hit that goal, you bust. So you're out for the round. And what I've built, simple interface, I am kind of running up against Airtable limitations for, I think this is on my Pro plan. So certain features aren't available in the interface. A custom interface would have been cool. I didn't build one. So this is all plain, just Airtable. General idea is you can start a new game and say who's playing, but I already have a fresh game here with Dan, Allie, and Camille. If I had sort of a true multiplayer approach, I would have given Dan and Allie a link to this interface and we all could have played at the same time, because it would know when you click hit me, which basically means draw a card, who just clicked that button and who that card should go to. So Airtable's a little slow for me too. I think it was slow for Lisa as well. Sure hoping that everything's fine. But what it's just done is it's given me the card 7. So in the game Flip 7, which again I'm recreating, your goal is to get to 7 total cards, 7 total number cards without repeating a number. So if I get another 7, my round is over. But if I get a 6, cool. At the end of the round, you count up the number of points you have based on your number cards. You can also get modifier cards that are like ×2 or +4. So if I got a +4, I'd be sitting at 11. And then action cards, which is where this thing comes into play. Certain cards are action cards, which you can give to someone else. 7 is not. So I'm going to say, hit me, just draw me another card. What this is doing is it's running a script behind the scenes that is randomly sorting through my deck of cards. There's in the real Flip 7, there are 9 9s, 8 8s, 7 7s, so on and so forth. So it knows how many 7 and 9s are left in the deck based on what's been drawn by everybody for this one game. At the end of the game, everything is shuffled. So I'm just going to keep saying hit me until I get a bust. So far, I'm good. I've got a 7, a 9, and a 5. As you can see, it's counting up all of my my score so far. I had it go in the number or the order in which you drew the cards, but if you're playing in real life, you probably want to sort by the numerical value. It's just easier to count up that way. I'm going. I don't have any exciting cards, but I haven't busted yet. Let's see. I've got 2 more cards that I'm trying to reach to. You want to get 7 number cards. So far, I'm good. Nope, I busted. So I got a second 12. Devastating. And Airtable knows that I've busted. I got 2 12s. So I got 0 points. When you bust, you don't, your life is over. It moves on to the next player. In reality, I would go, then Dan would go, then Allie would go, and you would, blah, 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 blah. But it knows that I've busted. It's reduced my score down to 0. I kind of have to just sit out the rest of the round. I don't remember how I built this now that I'm thinking about it, because I should be able to now play as Dan or Allie. And I forgot how I do that. But the general idea is that you would play, and then at any point I could have said stay. 44 was a good score. I could have said stay, and that would have kept my points. And then the next round I would have started with 44 points, and I could have kept going. I think you're supposed to get to 200 or so. That's the
if you
interface.
Preview as, well, I guess those aren't tied to
well,
people.
What did I do? What's happening? Draw a card. What's happening? I built this when the thing was announced, which was quite some time ago.
Let's see.
Okay. Round, yes. But how does it know? What did I do? While I figure out my own life, I'm going to go through the structure, which is pretty straightforward. The first one is the deck. So like I said, there's 1 0, 1 1, 2 2s, 3 3s, etc. There's up to 12. So there's that many cards in the deck table, and they all have just a picture of what the real life card would look like. And there's a couple other fields as well. Like I said, there are unique modifiers and action cards. So they have special little fields over here, and their cards look a little bit differently. This adds 6 to your score, for example. And then another one, pretty simple. Who are the people who could possibly play this game? This is what I did. Okay. Okay. All right. Now I'm going to be Allie. And again, I did this way because I didn't actually invite other people to this interface. If you did, you wouldn't have this problem. So now I'm going to go back to that same round. I'm going to say, hit me. It should go to Allie, I'm thinking. Yes, it does. So now it thinks that I'm Allie. So you would keep going. I want to keep going until I get an action card to show what that would be. This is just the world's most boring game of Flip 7 right now. Just all numbers. Come on now.
Are you checking to see if it's a bust within the script that runs?
I should know the answer to that question, Allie. I don't. So here's what really happens. And that's why I keep wanting to get to an action card. So I'm just going to keep going until I do, because there's certain checks that happen when it is an action card. One of them is second chance. And if you get a second chance, that means it's your get out of jail free card. If I get a number 12 again, right, I would have busted. But if I have a second chance card in my deck, which is one of those special action cards, I can play that and then be safe. So what this automation is doing is saying, do you have a second chance card in your hand? If you do, then we're going to remove that card you just drew that would have busted you. It's not in your hand anymore. You've not busted, but it's also getting rid of your second chance. So it's doing that for you. And then the next time you bust, you're out, unless you happen to get another second chance card. I got a modifier card, not what I was hoping for, but it is nice to see. I have them displayed in their own little column because that's in real life when you play the game, you wouldn't have them all mixed in together. Give me an action card. It doesn't want to. Allie, you're just going to win naturally, I think, which is upsetting.
Oh
nope.
my gosh.
Okay, you busted. So again, it knows when you've busted based on if there's a unique value for each of the like numeric number cards. You can get as many of these modifiers and action cards as you want, but if you get 2 10s, you're out. And then the last thing it's doing is if you've gotten 7 numeric cards and you haven't busted, then you've won the game. So you've hit 7, congratulations. And then I have another few automations that are pretty simple of if I were to click stay, which I never do, you always hit, you try to get 7. And if you lose, then oh well. But if you stay, it's basically figuring out who you are and what round are we currently in. And then basically like you can't stay after you've already busted. The round is over, and you can't stay after you've been frozen, which someone gives you an action card that says, I don't want you to get any more points. You're stuck at whatever point total you currently have, which is either a blessing or a curse, depending on where you currently are. If you click stay and you're not one of these statuses, then you're out. So you get to keep your points, but you can't get any more points in the future, and no one can mess with you. Shuffle deck is where that script comes in that is randomly sorting all of the cards in the deck to be the sort order for this particular round. And then the last one is transfer card. If I ever get an action card, I could give it to another player, which will add it to their deck. So that's if I wanted to freeze someone else, or I think there's a rule in the real game. If you have a second chance card and you get another one, you can't have 2 in your deck. So you have to give it to someone else. I think that's a rule. And that's when you would transfer to another player. So
I love it.
That's cool. That is awesome.
So cool. Did you get those? Are those the actual card images?
So they are, and I do have the physical copy, but I couldn't take good photos. And then I just found someone had neatly arranged them in one big photo, and I like just cut up the screenshot. And then I realized I have a scanner and I could have just scanned them, but it was too late. I'd already started.
So cool. Do you have like nope, I was about to ask a really silly question. I was going to say, like, do you have like weights tied to the cards so like it's less likely for some to get pulled, but that's taken care of by the fact that there are more of some than.
Exactly. Yeah. So there are 12 12s. So when you're playing, I just switched myself to Dan so I could get an action card. My God. But when you're playing, 12 is great because it's a lot of points, but it also means statistically, you're probably going to bust. So it's great when you get 12 as like your 5th card. But if it's your first card, you're like, there's a good chance I'm going to draw another 12 because there's 11 more of them. In this case, 3 of them are already taken, but having it laid out this way, you can kind of gauge what your statistical chances are. Like there's only 1 3 drawn. There's 2 3s left in the deck. There's still plenty of 12s, plenty of 10s, plenty of 9s. This is what you kind of have to make your decision of when do you hit stay? Never, but you could. I want an action card. I promise they're in here. Okay, finally. Freeze. So it doesn't really matter because both of the other 2 people are out. But what you would do is say, I want to freeze Camille so she doesn't get any more points. And it should, So it has moved it from Dan to me, and that would mean that I'm frozen. Airtable knows that just happened, and it would have marked me as frozen, but because I've already busted, it didn't. Because, freezing at 0 and being busted is the same thing. So Dan can keep going because Dan didn't bust until right now. He just busted. So no one wins.
Cat's game. All right. That's so cool. Very creative.
Because there's a lot of rules in here that you got to account for.
It is. So like that points. If I go to, I want to say it's hands. Yeah, like is busted is interesting because what I'm doing is how many cards are in my hand that are number cards, because modifiers and action cards don't matter. How many of them have a unique numerical value? And if that's less than the total number of number cards I have, that means I have a repeat somewhere, which means I've busted. So that's how I've figured out that rule. And then the other one is like figuring out how to add up the points was actually trickier than I thought it was going to be. It's really easy to just have a roll up of the value of all of the cards if they haven't been discarded. You would discard if you had that a second chance thing and you got a second 12. It was in your hand, but it's been discarded. That's what that value is for. But then you have to do modifiers. And modifiers are they're all +2, +4, +8, and 1 times 2. The times 2 is what made it difficult because I could just add up the multiplier value to get the modifier, but then I had to account for that one instance where it was ×2. So do you have the ×2? If so, this would say a 2 instead of a 1. And then what the points total is doing, if you've busted, you get 0 no matter what. Otherwise, take your card value and multiply it by that ×2 first, and then add on the additional modifiers, the +2, the +4, +6. So this one, I had to like read the rules very specifically of like, do you add +2 and then ×2? Because that changes the number.
Right.
And for fans of Flip 7, you multiply first and then add.
PEMDAS.
But if you're thinking about joining the hackathon, you don't have to worry because Camille, I don't think you're planning to submit this, correct?
No, this would be cheating. I'm one of the judges.
So don't be discouraged.
Nope. And look at who we just had on. This is, it's a fully functioning game, straight Airtable, but I didn't build an RPG. So I don't think I'm the one to be worried about.
I wonder if, one thought for the hackathon, if you'll need a category for like raw Airtable only, native versus AI generated.
Well, because AI already kind of has its own category, but even if I am not the biggest Omni user, it's part of Airtable. It's a baked in feature of Airtable. Yeah. So,
I think there should be like a classic category for straight up old school Airtable.
Old school.
Yeah. I find what I'm finding really interesting is seeing how people think about translating like the game data into the database. Like, where does it live? What do you need to track?
Yeah. Because I think I only had deck players in rounds before. Rounds is like, a round of a game. I think everyone kind of gets that, but I had to have a separate hands table specifically to track what card do you currently have in your hand at the time, so I can add up your points over all of the rounds. And what I haven't figured out yet is like, at some point the game ends, there's no end to this game right now. This is like infinite number of rounds. And then there's specific things that I would like to do, but because I chose not to make a custom component for this, everyone is out at this point. That this round is over, but we all still have the option of clicking these buttons. That's something that you would polish up if you had full control over what's on the screen. And the transfer to player, you wouldn't transfer a number card. You would only transfer one of the action cards, but this always has to be visible based on how I've designed this page. So there's little things that you could do to make this go beyond fully functional and make it a better user experience that really kind of marries the idea of what it is you're trying to build and the tools you have at your disposal.
Yeah, paying attention to the user experience is big, I think. One thing about those buttons in particular that I find extremely frustrating is you can't have conditional visibility. Even if you have the feature, if you have business, you can't put conditional visibility on those buttons above the grid or list view.
Yeah, there are certain places you could put buttons that can be conditional visible, like at the top of the screen or on a regular group, I'll call it. But as soon as it's like this, it's a display of linked records. For whatever reason, those buttons can't be conditional, which is strange.
Very odd. I find myself duplicating the whole thing and putting the visibility on the entire element.
Yeah. Which I could do. And there's value in that for this particular instance, because I could have done it like you would do in real life, where one person goes, then another person goes, and it just repeats, you play in a circle. I could say, is it your turn? Okay, well, then you don't have the buttons at all. And the same thing, if you've busted, your round is over, you don't have any buttons. Right now, it's just free form, everybody goes at once, which affects the card draw order, right? Because when you start the game, the cards are already shuffled. So if we're all kind of going at the same time, if you're a big believer in luck or fate, you might say, oh, you stole my card. That should have been my card if we were going in order. So, for designing a game, that's actually pretty important. It's also why if you play D&D and if you have to roll twice for something, it matters which one you roll first. So there's certain aspects of designing the game as you put it in like a digital system like this that you really have to think through if you want that to be a component of your version of the game that might naturally be a part of the game if you were to play in real life.
Yeah.
Amazing.
We're going to have to have a game night some nights and get everybody in the community to join and play.
With the things that were going to be submitted, I think absolutely. We're probably going to get a couple more of these that are kind of like you can play them together as a group, I'd say. And then you're going to get a lot of good solo adventures. And I'm just really curious what other people are going to do, because last year when we had the hackathon and we were judging, it was so difficult. You had so many ideas and they were well executed, each of them. You couldn't say, oh, well, this one is like missing a bunch of stuff, we'll keep eliminated right off the bat. I'm assuming it's going to be the same for this one, where everyone's going to come with their A game, no pun intended.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Cool stuff. Thanks for sharing that, Camille. Well, anybody else that's watching on live, join us if you've got questions. One thought I had is, so we might do this again next week, although next Tuesday is the final day of the hackathon, so there might be some last minute corrections. But one thought I had was maybe we ask people to submit their questions asynchronously, because I know it's tough for everybody to come on live at this time.
Yeah.
So maybe I'll post, and if people have things that they're trying to work through, they could submit it asynchronously, and we could review those next week and talk through them. So that might be a way we could help more people.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Cool. Yeah, we don't have anybody else waiting. Anything else? We got 15 minutes. I know, Ali, we thought about maybe doing a live one. I don't know if we have enough time, or we could save that for next time, or any other general pointers or tips.
Let's see. I guess another just general pointer about Omni that I've been doing is like, if you're ever getting really frustrated with it just not working, you're yelling at it, like I often will just take the code and go give it to a different model and be like, what's wrong with it? Ask ChatGPT or Claude or whatever model of your choice, what's going on? Be like, why is this not working? And it can usually help you get it set back on the right track. You can even just copy what it gives you back and paste it over the code that Omni has, which is useful.
Yeah. That's where I'm more a fan, probably because I've also done this in the past, of the full-blown custom extension that allows you to develop on your local machine. And then kind of test it there, because in there you have, if you're used to using Cursor or some other external editor, you have a bit more control. You can use multiple models. I think Claude is pretty far advanced. I don't know what Omni uses. I think under the hood, I'm not sure what they use. I think they use a combination of multiple. So yeah, but that has the drawback that we talked about when Lisa was on, of you don't get to mix and match, because the custom component, you can't bring that into your local environment to develop and then deploy, right? That's only all done directly in there.
I believe so. You can just take the code out. You can download the code and then put it back in, but you can't run it locally.
Yeah, it is still a beta, so it's possible that they might be bridging that gap. I don't know that, but I think it would be nice if you could. Oh, how do you pull the code from Omni? That's a comment from, Lisa's still here. Hi, Lisa. Does anyone have a one that they could pull up? I don't believe I have a example I could show.
I have one I can show very briefly here. Let me share my screen. This is my real data, so I can't go super deep into it, but I can show you where the code lives. All right. So this is a custom extension just built with Omni, going to tools, generate an interface element. And then if I'm clicking on that element, I can go to these three little dots here and then say edit source code. And that will pop me into this screen. And I have not looked at this code yet. I'm experimenting with mapping my contacts. And it's going okay, but it's also a little buggy. But the code is here. I can edit this myself if I know what I'm doing, getting there myself. But I often will just copy all of this and give it to a different model and then put it back in here and hit save. And the awesome thing about this is if you break it, it just says it's broken. And there's a button that's like, help me fix it. And then AI will just fix it for you, in air quotes. But I hope that's helpful.
Yeah, you say you're just basically copy and pasting. So you'll paste that, you'll see it right there. You can play with it. Yeah, so I like that it has the split view, so you don't have to save it, then come back here, see if it works, then go back.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's pretty nice. Just while we're here, Ali, if you don't mind doing the history as well, which I believe lets you see previous, like the snapshot feature for bases, like previous iterations of the Omni generated app. And it might do it for any custom extension. I would have to double check, but
I think
you could see, if AI did something that you really don't like and you don't know how to find a prompt to say undo all of that, you could restore from a snapshot.
Yeah, exactly. I can just, and this will just revert it right back to what it looked like at that point, which I've found really, it's nice. Unlike a snapshot, which creates a brand new copy of it, this just does, it like rolls it all back.
Yeah.
That's very
I
nice.
was trying to, it is really nice. I've found that really useful. I was struggling with trying to get it to properly map the cities. And it's getting there. But yeah. Another thing that just to point out that I've found myself running into a lot is like in Omni, if you're working in this environment with this custom extension, you've got the tables and fields on this properties sidebar. If for whatever reason your extension is not working and you're like not seeing a field, it might be that the field is not visible in this dropdown. So you want to just go and make sure that of the tables you're using and the fields that you're using, you have them like not hidden. Otherwise, Omni won't be able to access them.
Yeah, that's a good point. How could you show in the code how it actually pulls? Is it passed? Are those fields passed as parameters? How does that work?
They are parameters. When you have custom properties, so these fields are not passed as anything. These are passed as custom properties, but sometimes your element may or may not have this section.
Mhm.
By the way, that's not my whole key there, and if it is, I will change it after this. Let's see, the edit source code. The custom properties, I've often found myself getting frustrated with how it brings those in because it'll do this. It's like it hard codes a table ID, and then it's like, if that doesn't exist, look for one that includes the name companies. It's like, just pick a random table, and then it defines what it thinks default values should be for these things. It's like, okay, the country field is on the company's table, and it probably, the default value means it includes the word country. Like, I don't know, it makes odd decisions here, but it brings those in, and then like custom properties by key is how it uses those, and then it actually gets the field based on what's chosen in that dropdown, kind of like script settings.
Gotcha. But the visible fields, there's no way of knowing what is configured to say, oh, you don't have this field enabled.
I think if you get the table and then do table.fields, I think it will only show you the fields that are visible.
Okay.
But like it doesn't know what field is missing, if that makes sense. So if you're expecting something to be there, sometimes you have to do a little bit of digging.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I've found and this is just my lack of knowledge around React and like how to actually like look at my console logging from this. Like I've found my error checking to be a little more difficult. But sometimes I'll have it like print up here in the screen, like what I'm expecting, and then I can actually read it, like read what's wrong. Like I can see what the values are that it thinks it's using. But it is very odd. Sometimes it'll be like just not working, and then if I unhide a table or if I like rehide something, it starts working again, and I'm like, I have no idea why that did anything, but AI.
Cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Very useful. All right. Well, hopefully, I don't know. Have they started receiving any submissions to the hackathon yet?
I don't believe, I think maybe one or two. I need to connect with Mike, so I'll have him an answer for next time. But given that we've got a whole week left, I think people are
there's no incentive to submit early.
Yeah.
Got time to continue tweaking.
Love it.
Awesome. Well, yeah, let us know if you've got things that you're working on, and if you want to submit it, just you can reply in the Slack and send a Loom video or recording or something, and we'll show it on the next one and talk through it if you're not able to make these live. Otherwise, you've got 1 week. You can get started today and still get something ready for next Tuesday to submit.
Yay.
Okay, we'll try this again next week and see if we can help anyone else. Thanks. Huge shout out to Lisa for joining. Excited to see hers. Sets the bar pretty high for everybody. Know what you've got to do, but it's possible. Anybody can do it. Omni's there to help, and excited to see what people submit. So with that, everybody have a great week, and we'll connect next week.
Thank you.